Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya
Hi,
Krishna Prasad.
Krishna.
How are you, Mother Lalanga?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just finishing everything. Well, actually, just busy because uh, um, we have like so much going on right now to prepare for February 15th.
Oh, that's right. You have a big life event coming up. Before.
Yeah. So there's like it's so much more planning than I actually thought it would be. So, but anyway, it's going well. How about you? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine here. I'm just trying to rush to get caught up here. We're on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 37, correct?
Chapter 2, text 37. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great.
I'm
So
gonna see if I
let me find my opening invocations.
All right.
Hmm.
Let's see here.
Sorry, I don't know from memory yet.
It's okay. Now they're doing it. We're on the last text, right?
We're at 37. Is that the last?
I think
Oh,
so.
geez. You're gonna have to round it all up here. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasham Tatu Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama sloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Vayam tuna vitripyama utama shloka vikrahame yatrini vatam rasa tinanam svadu svadu pade pade. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So let's jump right in. Srimad Bhagavatam 2:37. Pibante Bhagavata Atmana Satam Kathamritam Shravana Putesu Sambritam Punantite Vishaya Vidushitas Vrajanti Takara Charana Sarorudantikam. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those who drink through oral repetition of reception, those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him the personality of Godhead. The sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord. And thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food, grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc., in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race of the world, as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Shukadeva Goswami, namely, sufficiently hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost their perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Katharamrita mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, quality, and entourage, etc., are all pleasing, and because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaja, and other inhabitants of Vrindavana, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the messages of the Bhagavad Gita, and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Shukadeva Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavana, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of bhakti yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse, by sufficiently hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without one's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. And by practicing bhakti yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. So, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Lord in the Heart. And just quickly to repeat the verse that we just read, which is 2:37. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian image of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of him, the personality of Godhead. Wow. Now, if that doesn't just sum it all up, I don't know what would. Okay, so we're told, just as in the invocations at the beginning, we're told that we will benefit just from hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is what it says here. If you would just listen, the oral reception, it's filled with this wonderful message about Lord Krishna. So just listen. And this it's not about leaving the material world. It's about transforming it, that no longer, is the material world enjoyment, but that we have to get control of our senses and focus on Krishna, and we can surely get back to Godhead if this is the path that we follow. And basically Prabhupada points out something that's very relevant in this day and age, that the sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. In other words, we want to make more and build more and do more progress. And nowadays it's all the way getting into artificial intelligence now. But here it's telling us, basically that the important things of life are very simple and are all just supplied, by God, by nature. Everything is right here. We don't need complicated machines and well, need I dare I say computers and robots and artificial technology and those kind of things. We don't need any of that to get back to Godhead. All we need to do is realize, the folly of being attached to material enjoyment and redirect our focus to Lord Krishna, which is very well done through our oral reception of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Or the Bible.
Yeah, sorry, I kept myself on mute because there's a lot of sometimes strange noise happening in the background. I didn't want to interrupt your speaking. But I was just thinking about this verse also as the last chapter. And I mean, as the last verse in this chapter. And Shukdev Goswami brings it back to oral reception, hearing the message of Krishna and of his devotees, and that's really what the whole. If you were to ask somebody, what is the Srimad Bhagavatam? It's about Krishna and it's about his devotees. Those are the pastimes, and I was thinking also about what you were saying. Um, about like how all we really had to do, how this process is actually kind of simple, and it was making me think about how Prabhupada mentioned once that Krishna consciousness is simple for the simple and complicated for the complicated. And Prabhupada, so many times, he also glorifies this hearing process of Srimad Bhagavatam and actually says, the two most important things are hearing and chanting. Because, by hearing about Krishna, this attraction naturally develops. I'm trying to think of this verse in the Bhagavatam where it was said that the Krishna, he like all the misgivings in the heart are completely destroyed by one who develops an attachment to hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada also put things in a very simple way. He would say, if you want to go to some place, and he gave the example California because at the time he was in New York, and he was talking about California, and he was saying, I haven't been to California, but such and such of our friend has, and he tells me about it. So you have some idea of what it's like, and then your attraction for hearing about that place, or no, your desire to go to that place develops by hearing about it. It's the same. The perverted reflection of this in the material world is, all these commercials and advertisements. I don't know if you remember, you turn on the TV and you see some advertisement for Jamaica or something, and they show all the beautiful spots and somebody jumping off a cliff, somebody going under a waterfall, somebody hanging out on the beach, somebody having some romantic dinner, something something like that. And at the time I had a friend from Jamaica, and so I went to her one day. I was like, oh, I saw an advertisement for Jamaica, for coming to Jamaica. And she said, did they make it look like paradise? And I said, yes. And she said, don't believe them. So, but it is the perverted reflection in the material world, you want to attract people to a certain place. So, you tell them all the wonderful things about it so that they'll have a desire to go. And really, that's how our attraction for anything starts, is that we hear about it. And so with Krishna consciousness, it's the same way. We've had this attraction to the material energy, to having our own little story here, to trying to enjoy our life through various ways. And we've all gotten this because we've heard about various forms of sense enjoyment. So the way that we change this desire is that we start to hear about Krishna. And I'm a part of a group that in the evening, one of my friends, she's reading from Venu Gita. She's reading about pastimes of Krishna in the evening. And this book is written by Shivaram Swami. And so she's reading it every night for about 30 minutes on her YouTube channel. And I listen in before I go to bed. And it talks about what's happening in the spiritual world. And I know last night it was talking about, Madhu Mangal, like the cowherd boys were trying to get sweets from Madhu Mangal. He didn't give them. So, like they're digging in his clothes, everything, trying to find the sweets. And he's like running away from them. And then his dhoti falls off. And then Krishna very kindly comes and like puts his dhoti back on for him, so he's not all embarrassed. And, just talking about how they're playing around, and it gives you like glimpses of what's going on in the spiritual world, and you're like, oh wow, the spiritual world is really cool. People are playing around. It's very attractive. And I was telling Prabhupada Priya that she's the one that's doing the reading, and I was saying, hearing about this, we're getting this idea of what people are doing in the spiritual world. They don't just sit around all day, but they're actually playing. They're actually having a good time. Um, they're kind of doing what everybody in the material world is hoping to do by trying to do things their own way. Everybody's wanting to just enjoy. I mean, that's the whole reason why we work a job, for so many years, so that we can have some money to enjoy. But anyway, yeah. So this hearing, like I had said before, it brings back our attraction to Krishna. And I also really appreciate how you were mentioning how we don't need all these artificial things. And Prabhupada mentions in this purport, the human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food grains, milk, wood, fruit, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc. And in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race or the world, as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. So I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita yesterday, and it was the chapter on the Atmarama verse. And in one of these purports, um, it's it discusses again the pastime of Mrgari the hunter, which is also told in Shrimad Bhagavatam, I believe. And we were at the part where Narada Muni is telling the hunter, to break his bow. And the hunter is saying, well, if I do this, how will I survive? This is my livelihood. And he's saying, don't worry, your maintenance will be provided for you. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that we think by our occupation that we are the one ultimately supplying our maintenance, but actually it's Krishna that's giving everyone their quota. So there's this verse in Shish Upanishad where it talks about the second mantra that everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. So one should therefore accept his quota. So sometimes this can be misinterpreted, and people can think, oh, well, then I just won't work, because Krishna will give me everything. And of course, if one is totally surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this may happen. Like this will happen. Krishna will provide. But at the same time, when we're conditioned it's best that we do some type of work that's according to our nature because we're going to act anyway, as the Bhagavad Gita talks about. And one has to be responsible in this world. But we should understand from this purport and from other places in Prabhupada's books that ultimately our maintenance is being given to us by Krishna. Krishna is the owner and controller of everything. And it helps us keep the focus of life in mind, which is ultimately to hear about Krishna and to return back to Godhead and do devotional service. Prabhupada would say, this is the mission of human life, full devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we keep in mind, that really everything is supplied to us by Krishna. Krishna's the owner, Krishna's the enjoyer of everything. Prabhupada mentioned, so for one engaged in full devotional service, Krishna provides. And I've talked to people who have dedicated their life to this service. They didn't pursue huge careers, although there is nothing wrong with that if one wants to go that path. Of course, a devotee can be all in all forms. But I asked one Grihasta couple one time, weren't you scared that Krishna wouldn't provide for you? And she said, Krishna will always provide for you, but it's just it's when you think that you need more than what you need that becomes a problem. So these were just some realizations I had on what you were saying.
Very good, very good. Welcome to Bhakta Fabienne. You know that we have just read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 37. Basically, we have just finished Chapter 2. And do you have any comments on it?
Sorry, I haven't understood what.
We just read Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 37. But we finished the second chapter. But before we go on, do you have any comments on anything that we've said since you have a connected or to the content of the verse, which is translation? Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Would you like to comment?
I think that is a very nice thing what you have read. Yes, it's a nice verse. Yes, I think that in this material world, there isn't nothing important that has really importance. But there's the spiritual part that is very, very important to achieve and develop and to understand. Yes, because Krishna is in everything and in the heart of everybody. Every entity has the Paramatma in his heart. And if we understand that Krishna is in the heart of everybody, we understand automatically that everything and everybody are doing what Krishna wants. So in reality, there's nothing that is not under the control of the Supreme. Yes. That we have to understand that, and understanding this, we are in peace. Yes, we achieve the peace of mind, body, soul. Yes, even if can be some problems, physical or mental problem, but those problems are they pass. Yes, they are not permanent, like the spiritual things. Yes, the spiritual platform. So, knowing this, that all is provided by Krishna, and everybody do the what want Krishna, we are in peace, and there's nothing that can mm, kill us because we are the soul, kill to distress, yes, to give problems. Even if someone like Kunti reach want problems in their lives, because they ask they pray God to have peace and protection. Yes, because to ask for problems, and uh, to ask for the peace, basically they have the same goal. Yes, to pray Krishna.
Yes, basically, I think what Kunti said basically is, well, keep giving me these problems so that I don't forget about you. Right? I will keep remembering you. Yes, yes,
Yes, this
very okay.
And
Okay, Amanda.
I also thought it was interesting you brought up Kunti, because that made me think that Kunti was so attracted to Krishna that she wanted the problems to keep coming so Krishna would keep like being there for them, because he was with them throughout all of their difficulties when they were exiled in the forest, when they lost their kingdom, when they lost everything basically. So Krishna was right there with them. And it's a really good example of showing just how wonderful Krishna is, that when one has Krishna, they really don't desire anything else. So for Kunti is an extreme example, to the point that she was wanting calamities to keep happening. Let these calamities happen again and again so that we can see you again and again. So just imagine how wonderful Krishna is, that somebody like Kunti is okay with the calamities to keep coming and coming so that she can keep seeing Krishna, so that Krishna will be there, Krishna will be with them. Because at this point where she speaks this verse in Shrimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is about to leave to go back to, I think, Dwarka, I think it is. And of course it's been a minute since I've read the whole chapter. But anyway, Krishna is about to leave, and that's when Kunti speaks this verse. And for most people, nobody wants calamities in the world, but it really does show how wonderful bhakti yoga would be if one keeps actually hoping that calamities will come, and so that they can keep seeing Krishna. And there's something also mentioned here in this verse. By the constant hearing of the messages of Bhagavad Gita and later Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Shukadeva Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental living service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan. So, what I was thinking when I was reading this, if you guys remember, this chapter started off with it's it started off with Srila Shukadeva Goswami. He basically has been talking about this yogi that's going to these different places and naturally getting purified, and I mean, of course, that's not at the very beginning of the chapter. At the very beginning of the chapter, he's saying, he was talking about the Virat Rupa and saying even Lord Brahma was able to rebuild the creation by meditating on the Virat Rupa. And then, he goes into talking about how this, yogi naturally gets purified. But then Prabhupada makes the points in a couple of these purports that this process isn't exactly, possible for this age. And so Shukadeva Goswami, he ends this chapter very nicely by ultimately coming back to what the essence of all that is, which is to, as he mentioned in the last verse, to hear and glorify and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. So basically, that's all we're doing in our practice. Really, we're hearing by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and and Bhagavad Gita and other books of Srila Prabhupada. So by doing this, that desire to be with Krishna, it comes out more and more in the heart, and we can see there's tons of evidence of this, of people who have become purified in this way. Maharaj Parikshit is an example given in the Nectar of Devotion of one who becomes purified by hearing. Also, we can see that Dhruva Maharaj with his not Dhruva, I'm sorry, Narada Muni with his association with the sages. When they were staying with him, he also got purified by their association. And so, we can see in the Bhagavatam how, and also there's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's an example of Chintamani the prostitute who got purified just by hearing the chanting of Haridas Thakur, and it only took her 3 days. So, so, so we can just see how powerful this process of hearing is, and one can really experience it when you take time to really hear Prabhupada's books. You feel something. You feel some connection with Krishna. When you're hearing about the pastimes, or when you're hearing this literature. Of course, maybe some parts of Bhagavatam might inspire you more than others, because some might be a little bit difficult to understand at maybe one's current level. But still, there's always something in in these books, something for everybody to relish, to bring back their attraction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's also what I was thinking about hearing this.
Very good, absolutely. Well, yes, I don't know if there's anything more we can say to sum up the chapter. I mean, we've been told in this chapter of, some long and grueling methods towards approaching Godhead, and we've also been told of, how simple and easy it can be if we just listen and follow instructions, do devotional service, do our chanting, so we've seen, that something that seems so simple can be done in a very complex way as well. I mean, because all paths are going to eventually lead to the final results, but some paths take longer and involve more effort, which are maybe in this day and age are unnecessary efforts, when the most direct path is through the listening, the hearing, the chanting, and the hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So having summed up this chapter, if there's anything else you want to add, now is the moment, because then we can begin chapter 3.
There was also something you mentioned about oh gosh, you said it in the very beginning, and I'm trying to think of the exact word that you said, but it was about like making this material spiritual or something like that. I can't remember. And it was reminding me of this Prabhupada lecture, and that also goes back to the hearing process, how you can't really, if you're not hearing about Krishna, then what's happening is you're seeing all these things as a source for your own enjoyment. How do I make my life good? But for the devotee, for one on the highest platform, they're seeing all these things, and they're thinking, oh, this is Krishna's, this is not mine. So therefore, you're taking that material and you're converting it into spiritual. And actually, in this one lecture I heard from Prabhupada, He said the difference between the material energy and the spiritual energy is a matter of consciousness in the ultimate sense, because everything is coming from Krishna. So the the pure devotee, they see this material energy as, oh, this is also Krishna's. This is coming from Krishna. This is for Krishna. And therefore they're able to go peacefully without any anxiety. And meanwhile, for one who's not in devotional service, you can see that there's a lot of anxiety. And that's because, when we don't use things in the way that they're meant to be used, when something else is the property of someone else, when there's something that belongs to someone else, and you're using it for yourself, you're kind of a thief, because it's not yours. And for a thief, you can see that there's always anxiety. They don't sleep peacefully at night because they think, okay, what if somebody catches me or something? So in the material world, for one who's, you can really see how, for one who's not engaged in devotional service, there's always this source of anxiety. First of all, because it doesn't belong to us, and second of all, because whatever enjoyment we get from it is temporary, and because we're pleasure seeking living entities, we're always looking for the next thing. So therefore we get further entangled in this type of anxiety, trying to satisfy ourselves.
Yes, very good. And there's only one more thing that I would like to add, and it's that having to do with this idea of purifying the polluted aim of life, known as material enjoyment, purifying the pure us, like as you were saying, that the material life exists, and we relate to it in either through the modes of passion, the mode of ignorance, or the mode of goodness. And in this chapter, it's explained that we need to at least progress to the mode of goodness in order to take off from there and go further. We can't stay in the material world in the mode of ignorance or passion and expect this to happen. We must first transform our life in the material world to the form of goodness, our way of reacting to the material things, I guess. And from there we can progress beyond that to leaving the material things behind and moving into the spiritual world. Any further comment on that?
um yeah, I also like how you mentioned how first we have to come to the mode of goodness, because in certain lectures, sometimes I've heard people put down the mode of goodness, but and in one sense, you don't want to get stuck there. It can be a little confusing, but at the same time, you have to at least come to that platform before you can transcend it. Because if you really think about how these modes of nature work, in passion, you're always kind of hankering for something and lamenting for something else. So you've seen people that are just very caught up in stuff. They can't just chill out and relax. They gotta be, okay, doing this, doing that, going here, going there, and I had to make money, and I had to get this thing, and I had to get that thing. And then the mode of ignorance is kind of like the opposite. It's hankering and lamenting, and then I'm sorry, just mainly kind of being morose and lamenting over what you didn't get or what you didn't achieve. There's also excessive sleeping in this mode. There's intoxication in this mode, yeah. And so, in this state of consciousness, um, one can't actually make any real spiritual progress. And there was a Back to Godhead article I read once called "Who's Pulling the Strings," and it really perfectly described these three modes by giving these like three different couples. And one of them, like in the mode of ignorance, they were just like kind of living in this like cheap apartment in New York. They were on government assistance. They were like doing tons of intoxication. They had all these lofty ideas for starting a like a farm in Spain, growing organic food. but it never actually went past dreaming. That's all because they were just kind of like so into their intoxication, excessive sleeping, and weren't actually doing any real work. And then you had the people in the mode of passion, and they were just very caught up in their career the whole time, and constantly thinking about going to the next level. And they had the big huge house and like the nice car, and kind of just caught up in that rat race type of thing. So they didn't really have any time for spiritual life, because from sunrise to sunset, they're caught up in their work. And then you have the people in the mode of goodness, and oh yeah, no, the people in the mode of passion. There was also like a lot of fights, like between the couple, and then the people in like the mode of goodness. They were very peaceful people. They worked for their maintenance. They tried to make an honest living. Um, they did pious activities, and you could see like kind of how their life was much more peaceful. They didn't endeavor for more than what they needed, which is kind of a symptom of the mode of passion. And and you could see how like the life of these people was much more conducive to spiritual life. They didn't quarrel unnecessarily. They accepted what was given to them, and and like their life was much more conducive for spiritual life. Of course, at the same time, one of the dangers of that, is that we don't want to get to the point where we're just happy with that, because that's kind of like the thing in the mode of goodness, is it can make you kind of happy in the material world. So um so this happiness, see, wait, hold on, this happiness is it can kind of keep us here, because Krishna's like, okay, you're happy in the material world, all right, you don't need to come back to spiritual world, you can just stay there.
Right, right. This is a pointer question that I brought up a few times with Maharaja, like the mode of goodness is like it can be a trap, and everything seems to be going so well. You've gotten, all these rewards for your nice behavior, and you're getting all of this, and everything is going so well. And then, you might just forget about Krishna and start, enjoying the material world for its own sake again, which is the wrong path, of course. So yeah, this is a very good point, that it's a platform from which to go beyond and leave those things. But it's a pleasant platform, because remember, a lot of our suffering comes from those very passions, those passions of loving so intensely and hating so intensely, or being too confident and then being too scared. And we have these passions will create a lot of suffering in our life, as well as ignorance. When you don't understand something, you can't get beyond if you don't try to understand something. So once you've reached the mode of goodness, it may seem that your life is less problematic, so you could still be very attached to a material existence. And so what you're saying is a very good point. This is the platform from which to we should finally be able to leave behind the material existence. Ah. So we have maybe 10 or 15 minutes left. I don't know if we want to start. Chapter 3 was called the Lord in the Heart. And now, chapter 2. Now going on to chapter 3, it's called Pure Devotional Service, the Change in the Heart. So, this promises to be, very, how would you say, instrumental in our development, this next chapter. Um, Once again, any more comments on chapter 2 before maybe Lavanga could read the first text of chapter 3?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that if Bhakti Fabian doesn't have anything else to say. You're on mute. You're on mute, Prabhu. You're on mute, Dr. Fabian. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, now, now I can speak. Sorry. Sorry, Lavanga Mataji Lavanga, what you said? Sorry, I haven't understood good.
We were
Please, can
asking
you...
if there are any more comments on chapter 2. See, if not, we will go on to chapter 3 now.
No, no, okay, it's good. It's good, so yes. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start with the chapter 3, text 1. Shishuka vacha evam etan nigatitam prishtavan bhavan mama nirnam ya miryan mananam manusheshu manishinam. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. In human society all over the world, there are millions and billions of men and women, and almost all of them are less intelligent because they have very little knowledge of spirit soul. Almost all of them have the wrong conception of life, for they identify themselves with gross and subtle bodies, which they are not, in fact. They may be situated in different high and low positions in the estimation of human society, but one should know definitely that unless one inquires about his own self beyond the body and the mind, all his activities in human life are total failures. Therefore, out of thousands and thousands of men, one may inquire about his spiritual self, and thus consult the revealed scriptures like Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. But in spite of reading such scriptures, unless one is in touch with a realized spiritual master, he cannot actually realize the real nature of self, etc. And out of thousands and hundreds and thousands of men, someone may know what Lord Krishna is, in fact. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, it is said that Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, prepared the Vedic literatures in the incarnation of Vyasadeva for reading by the intelligent class of men in human society, which is almost totally forgetful of genuine relation with Krishna. Even for such an intelligent class of men, even such an intelligent class of men may be forgetful in their relation with the Lord. The whole Bhakti Yoga process is therefore a revival of the lost relation. This revival is possible in the human form of life, which is attained only out of the evolutionary cycle of 8,400,000 species of life. The intelligent class of human being must take a serious note of this opportunity. Not all human beings are intelligent, so the importance of human life is not always understood. Therefore, manishinam, meaning thoughtful, is particularly used here. A Manishinam person like Maharaj Parikshit must therefore take to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and engage himself in devotional service, hearing, chanting, etc. of the holy name and pastimes of the Lord, which are all Hari Katamrita. This action is especially recommended when one is preparing for death. Hold on 1 second. So I'm keeping my face a little close to the camera because sometimes these sounds come in and I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. I wish I could mute the background noise. But anyway, actually I heard in a lecture once.
There's a setting for helping to mute the background noise, but we can talk about that later.
Okay. Yeah, please, we'll talk about that later. So this chapter that we're beginning, it actually reminds me of a lecture I heard that the Bhagavatam could have actually stopped with the beginning of the second canto, because Maharaj Parikshit's question, what is the duty of a man who's about to die, was already answered. but but he kept asking more questions, and so the conversation kept going on. And so therefore, we got all 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that really just show you the importance of inquiring, asking questions to get a deeper understanding of something, because we notice that so much more has been given to us. And then also Prabhupada said too that he actually put everything in the first canto when he was writing Srimad Bhagavatam, because he wasn't sure how far he would get. So he gave us everything in the first canto to go back to Godhead. But I'm very happy he kept going. So in this purport,
maybe that was because he wasn't sure how far we would get.
Yeah,
how far he would get. He wasn't sure how far we would get, so it was very important to put everything in the first canto.
that is also true. That is also true. Yeah, both things are true. Yeah, I wasn't sure like how far we would get as human society, and also, a pure devotee is always ready for whatever Krishna wants to send, wants to send them. So, and so that's also why Prabhupada gave us Krishna book too. He said that we would at least have Krishna's pastimes in case he didn't get to the 10th canto. But this purport is, I really love it, because it's mentioning that no matter what position you are in life, a high position or a low position, we see there's people in all different positions. There's people in the top 1%, people in the 99%, whatever. But it's all kind of useless unless one actually inquires to their real identity beyond the material body. And it really hits home when you think about it, because no matter what position you're in, this high position or this low position, we're all in a situation where we're going to have to give up our body. We're going to have to give up our position one day. And we're going to have to leave the things behind that we've acquired. No matter if you have a net worth of 1 billion or a net worth of $50, you're going to have to leave it. And so, unless one actually inquires to what their situation is going to be beyond the body, then it's kind of a failure in human life, because in some way we're all in a situation where we're going to have to die one day. We may be able to delay our death by eating healthy, taking some type medicines and things like this. But I had this realization yesterday that even if we're able to keep ourselves alive, for a little bit longer, in ultimate sense, one day, we're not going to be able to stop our death. Although there is a man, I saw a video yesterday, that claims that he's slowed down his aging to a point there he's like, I don't expect to die. I don't think I'm ever going to die. So, and of course, the Bhagavatam would say people like this are absolute fools, because you can't. Eventually, the body is going to age and you're going to have to give it up. So, in some ways, we're kind of like in a jail. They have people on death row, and people on death row, they have TVs, and maybe they have, they go outside to play sports, and they have, different types of food and whatnot, but they're all kind of on death row. Eventually their number is going to be called, and they're going to have to go, do their thing. Of course, they might be lucky enough to get their sentence reduced to life in prison, but whether or not, they're going to have to give up that position anyway. So that's the actual position of all of us. All of us are really in this position of Maharaj Parikshit, where we're in this position where we know, okay, we're going to have to give up our body and die one day. And so the thing is that Maharaj Parikshit, he's actually in a more fortunate situation than us, because he knew that at least he had 7 days, but we don't know how long we have. And so he's actually inquiring for the benefit of all of us. And so in this verse here, Shukadeva Goswami, he's saying, I've answered you as far as the duty of an intelligent man who's on the threshold of death, which that answer is ultimately one should hear about and glorify the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But now we're going to see that the question, the conversation continues, and the topics get expanded on a little bit. And with that, because it's 10:30, I'm going to stop here.
Yes, because we see that that next week you will have the glory of reading to us texts 2 to 7. Wow, that's a whole bunch of them all put together for beginning next week's session. So thank you very much. And well, now we'll be waiting for Guru Maharaj to join us. Will you be staying, Lavanga, or are you leaving now?
Oh, I have to jump off now actually, but is I
Okay.
can will this next part be recorded? I can watch it later.
I don't think so. This next part is about how to post Maharaj's information about his books on Facebook, etc.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
But
just
you're welcome to help us if